You've got a neutral rating, an $85 price target. Why? And what do you make of the rally so far with Tesla this year?
Craig Irwin is quite bearish on Tesla stock, although his tipranks.com ranking reveals that he is in the top 1,000 of all of Wall Street analysts. But that is only if we look at the past 12 months. If we look at his returns from 2009 and compare that to S&P 500, we will see that he underperformed the market by 1.6%, and he is only in the top 6,000 of all of Wall Street analysts out of 8,300. So while Craig has been pretty on point in the last 12 months, beating many Wall Street analysts, his long-term insights have proven to not be great. So let's take a look at what he says, and maybe he is right short-term, which would make me happy because that would allow me to load up a lot more on Tesla stock.
Tesla had some pretty violent moves to the downside last year. A lot of that was due to Twitter, and people really wanting Mr. Musk to focus his time at Tesla. You know, okay, he's going to spend more time than we like at Twitter. But Tesla's getting the right attention. So, you know, you've seen the value come back into the stock that came out primarily because of Twitter.
And now imagine if Elon actually appointed a Twitter CEO this quarter, which we learned recently that is not going to happen. Unfortunately, Elon says that maybe he will appoint someone by the end of the year. I think the exact word he used was probably by the end of the year. Although I personally would not really count on that because that is Elon's time, and he also gave a condition that Twitter has to be financially stable. So if Twitter becomes really financially stable in the next few months, then maybe that would be happening also much sooner, but I don't think it's likely at all. I think there is a bigger chance that is going to be delayed until next year, perhaps, or even further. I think Elon will stay involved with Twitter to some degree for as long as he owns Twitter. But with all of the experience that Elon gained and all of the teams that he built during all these years running multiple companies, I think he can add one more company, Twitter, and still run Tesla just fine.
The negative revisions to forecasts, you know, expectations of 1.5 million being brought down to 1.4 million, you know, that's still some pretty amazing growth. You know, these guys are category king in the EVs. So, you know, a lot of people want to own Tesla. But, you know, we're bearish on Tesla. We see Tesla's a great company, but we think, you know, there's going to be some real winners. The 100 or so EV models are supposed to hit the road this year. Many of those will be just as compelling as the Lightning or, you know, the Porsche Taycan, or, you know, pick your car, right? Kia's got some great cars that are selling well. The Mach-E. Tesla's going to have some real pressure in the back end of this year, just like they faced in the back end of last year. And, you know, that is going to impact margins.
It is impacting margins, especially margins of automakers that have not really made any money selling EVs, but now even they have to discount their vehicles. While this may hurt Tesla in the short term, especially if you look at the short-term earnings, sure, that will have an effect. For example, the earnings are not going to grow as fast as previously expected, and maybe if you have a bad recession, the earnings may even be wiped out. But these other automakers are going to hurt a whole lot more. For example, remember this report? Ford no longer is making any profit on Mustang Mach-E due to inflation. So what is Ford doing? Naturally, they are offering Ford Mach-E's below MSRP. Here's the thing. All these other automakers, they can only cut so much until their legacy ICE business is just simply not going to be able to support the EV business that is running at a loss. Tesla can still cut prices further if it needs to do so. Now, that would be a nightmare scenario for Tesla's competitors.
Margins have been overlooked for the near term. We're going to have some chunky margin pressure, and everybody's waving that away to buy back into the stock, you know, just trying to pick a bottom. You know, our view is, you know, we should be cautious, and you're probably better off in some of the other names in the space, you know, given that, you know, there will be multiple winners a category that, is inevitable.
Okay, well, let's, for example, take a look at Kathy Wood. She holds some NEO stock, although not as much anymore. She holds XPeng, and you can find BYD in there as well. So let's take a look at specifically this ticker, and let's see how that compares to Tesla stock. So let's see how much it went down. So it went down about 51% from its peak, which is similar to Tesla stock, which right now is down about 51.5% from its peak as well. However, pay attention to right here, past 5 years, 740% return. And ARK, well, it's up 37% in the last 5 years, specifically this ticker. And if you go with this one, then everything just looks worse, unfortunately. The fund is down 74%. Last 5 years, it's still negative. This is despite the fact that this specific fund right now, I think Tesla is its biggest position. So this just shows you that you can have the right investing strategy. In fact, you can completely nail it, which Kathy Wood has nailed Tesla stock completely. And yet we look at the returns over the last 5 years and we see 5%, minus 5%. If she concentrated that on her highest conviction, so let's say that's Tesla, well, her fund would still be up 740%. So I wouldn't be so fast to just go out there and buy all other names. I only own Tesla stock in my stock portfolio, but if I wanted to diversify, then I would just go buy some S&P 500.
Well, Craig, let's talk a little bit more about two pieces of things you just said. One, the pressures that we could see on margins. How much pressure do you think we could potentially see? And then you said that Tesla, compared to some of the other, what you're calling winners out there, who do you think is going to beat Tesla?
Did Craig just show surprise that the question was even asked? Who can beat Tesla? I'm really curious to see what he is going to say. Keep in mind, he has a price target for Tesla stock that is under $100.
So a lot of the benefit that's come back into momentum in the stock is price cuts, right? A lot of people jumped in for price cuts. So people that are buying on price cuts are not exactly prone to auction things heavily. So you're mixing towards a lower margin crowd of buyers with an already margin direct price cut. So I think we're probably looking towards more like 1,000 basis points in margin degradation over the next couple of quarters instead of basically 500, 600, 700. That's heavy pressure. Now, a lot of people want to look beyond that and say wave it away because they've done a great job on margins, but not so great if you take out the ZEV credits and all the other credits. And then you factor where the mix is going to go in 24 and 25. They have to launch the mini car. That's going to be a fundamentally lower margin car. And all their vehicles are starting to look pretty long in the tooth. So that also doesn't speak highly of attractive margins going forward. So, yes, it's a growth stock. It's valued like a growth stock, and they have got growth going again, and they deserve credit for that. But I think that they're going to have a hard time really sustaining a multiple over the longer term, particularly given that the competition is looking very credible.
Notice how, even though Craig is really pessimistic on Tesla stock, he says it will drop under $100. When he's asked who is going to beat Tesla, he makes a lot of claims about how Tesla is going to lose margin and all that and all this, but no claims of any kind of who is going to beat Tesla. Me being a long-term investor, what I want Tesla to do is I want to have the most market share possible. I'm okay if Tesla sells vehicles at a lower margin because long-term that creates economies of scale. And if you have the Model Y, for example, which is going to outsell Toyota Corolla, maybe even, and become the world's best-selling car. Keep in mind the Model Y is a lot more expensive than the Toyota Corolla. That kind of economy of scale is going to give Tesla higher margins. Once you are there, it is difficult for others to take away from you because we just simply cannot produce cars at such a low cost that you can. So if you are not naming any names that can beat Tesla right now, then I don't see any concern for Tesla here. My biggest concern really is, will we get another buying opportunity because I would like to buy more? I think Tesla stock is still really cheap, but it does not hurt to buy even cheaper.
You had me at Ford F-150 Lightning. That's always how you get my attention. But when it comes to GM versus Ford in that EV space, how has that narrative changed given the recall there at Ford? And how do you think that story plays itself out this year?
EVs are tough, right? This is new technology. There's a lot of learning that happens. We would prefer that none of it really makes its way into the public. I mean, I guess Tesla just had a fairly chunky recall of its FSD, full self-driving. I think of that as a misnomer.
Well, he's right on this one. It is absolutely ridiculous to call a software update that is done over the air a recall. That's a misnomer. That's not appropriate. It should be called a soft call, maybe, which would be short for software update, right?
But the reality is there's learning that goes along, after these vehicles are launched. Fortunately, very little of it is catastrophic lessons. Most of it is fairly low cost to address. It doesn't bother me. I've driven an EV now for the last couple of years. My car's had a couple of recalls. It doesn't bother me. I just kind of accept this the way that we do when, there's recalls of the combustion engine vehicles that we own. And many of those do have recalls to address issues that, the OEMs would prefer never happen as well.
I would be really curious to learn which EV Craig drives. Please leave a comment down below if you know. And this is the Tesla stock buying opportunity explained by Elon Musk. My name is Matt Posius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.